Thanks for being part of In the Trenches with Dave Lapham, brought to you by First Star Logistics, and our special guest, University of Cincinnati head football coach, Luke Fickell, in this episode. Luke Fickell was the consensus Coach of the Year, National Coach of the Year, taking the Bearcats to the college football playoffs, the football Final Four as such, and battling Alabama. He's done a remarkable job. I'm going to talk about how he's built the UC football program. I'm going to talk about his senior class, where 8 of those guys could get drafted, maybe as many as 10. There's some other players that are going to get invited to camp as college free agents. And it's a record. You know, the old record was 6 players drafted in 2009. Going to set a new record. And the UC Bearcats have set a bunch of records. And you can be proud of the Bearcats, both on the football field and off the football field, academically, socially, environmentally, every way you can think of. Coach Fickell is responsible for all of it. I think you're going to like what he has to say today. Thanks for joining In the Trenches with Dave Lapham, brought to you by First Star Logistics, coming from our beautiful studios as always. And man, we got a special guest, and I'm talking very special guest today. Luke Fickell, head coach, University of Cincinnati. Coach, unbelievable run. I want to make sure that I get all this right, so I gotta make sure my spectacles serve me right here. Your record at University of Cincinnati, 48-15 in the conference. The last couple of years, 14-0. The last 3 years, 21-1. You've been Conference Coach of the Year 3 times. You were everybody's National Coach of the Year last year after the Bearcats make the football version of the Final Four, the college football playoffs. Unbelievable run, sir. And it's all about the culture that you built. And I've read more than once that your culture, you said, we're humble and we're hungry. Love it. Love it. I mean, congratulations on all your successes, man.
Well, Dave, I appreciate that. And I'm sure you would love to hear that we call ourselves an offensive line-driven program. So that we have not changed since the day we walked in the door for what we think is most important to what we do. And not everybody understands what offensive line-driven program means. I mean, it doesn't mean I just like the offensive linemen, but who they are and what they're all about is what we want to base our program on. I mean, nobody is more humble. Nobody works harder. Nobody has developed better. And, nobody like offensive linemen really are the ones that do all the work and maybe don't get all the credit. And so it's not just that we love offensive linemen. It's the idea that what they bring to our culture, what they bring to our environment, and what by nature they really are.
The thing that is impressive to me, Coach, not just the accolades of what your players have gotten on the football field, but in the classroom. I think there have been 5 first-team academic All-Americans at UC, and you have 2 of them that are graduating and are going to get drafted, Pierce and Ritter. They're both first-team academic All-Americans. I mean, that, to me, that speaks volumes. I mean, the best football teams that I was part of, they're very intelligent people and very intelligent football players. And your team GPA must be crazy.
Well, there's no substitute for intelligence. And that's one of the things we talk about in recruiting. And we actually you're exactly right. We had 2 first-team academic All-Americans. We had 2 second-team academic All-Americans too.
Wow.
So we had 4 guys that we would say were academic All-Americans. And one of those guys was a second-teamer, was an offensive lineman. And, they by nature are the intelligent ones, right?
There you go, Coach.
And then it was also Brian Cook, who's a local Cincinnati guy, Mount Healthy guy that we'll be talking about to be in the draft this year.
Yeah, that's it's to me, in a nutshell, the culture at UC. When Desmond Ritter was at the combine and he was running his 40, and they showed all his teammates in one room observing, watching Desmond Ritter perform at the combine, and they were going crazy when he ran the time that he ran at the combine and the fastest time of the quarterbacks. And then they did this little superimposed other speed quarterbacks that Ritter outperformed. And those guys were going nuts. To me, it was like, all right, that's the football family I'm talking about. I mean, it's it's more than just football. It's like these guys love each other, man. It's a big football family, and that was right there, right on the screen for me to observe, and that's big when you start seeing that stuff.
It is, and that's what, when we walked in the door, that's what we wanted to create. Some of the little things we try to do is to move them all in a place where they can live together, so they're always around each other, and you just peer pressures and things like that. And there's a uniqueness to what you want and then what you actually get. But like I try to say, our young men live up to what you expect of them. So sometimes when people just think we're expecting them to be great football players, then that's what they sometimes live up to. But when you have other things that you really expect them to be able to do, and taking care of their teammates and living with their teammates and being a great teammate is a big part of that, as well as the academics and the community stuff. I'm not sitting here pounding the chest, but it's something that was important to us when we walked in the door. We're very fortunate to have some guys that bought in, believed in that, and then we're set the example like the Desmond Ritters of the world that are giving us an opportunity to be where we are.
Let's start. This is we're going to talk about your senior class. 8 guys will get drafted. I'd be shocked if 8. Could be as many as 10, but if it's not 8, I'd be absolutely stunned. The school record in 2009, 6 players in an NFL draft. You're going to set a new record. Let's start with your quarterback, Desmond Ritter. Talk about a winner. I mean, 43-6, and then I'm going to give him 44-6 because he missed a series or 2, and you put him in the game, and he never. I mean, that was it. He won that game too. So 88% winning percentage. You kidding me? And undefeated at home, never lost a game at Nipper. The thing though that also is amazing to me, I saw this stat: 28 touchdown passes, 1 interception against the blitz over the last 2 years. So when you pressure him, he makes you pay. I mean, that's what it's all about. What is it about Desmond Ritter? Give us a thumbnail sketch of what makes this kid special, because people are talking about him, Coach. Everybody that interviews him, when that interview is over, it's like, whoa, this guy, man, we got to move him up.
Yeah. No, he's special. I think his competitive spirit is one of those things that I would say jumps out first and foremost. And then his ability to self-evaluate and be honest with himself. We all know that high-end, great athletes have, sometimes have a hard time, recognizing maybe even some deficiencies and things, and taking constructive criticism, whether it's from coaches or others, and then finding a way to be able to adjust. That's where the kid is phenomenal. I mean, I try and tell people, he won as a freshman in one way, he won as a sophomore in another way, he won as a junior in another way, and everybody still said, well, he's not this. And then he went in his senior year and won in a different way. And all doesn't matter to me as a coach. The wins are what you're looking for, but he had that ability to self-evaluate, to take the things, to find a way to grow, and that's why I always think that the sky's the limit for him, because whether he was a freshman, didn't throw it great, maybe didn't have the knowledge of the whole system, didn't have the guys around him maybe truly at the wide receiver spot to help him, and he won 11 games. And as a sophomore, I tell people he got slammed on his head and shoulder by Chase Young in the second or third game of the year, and played the next 4 or 5 weeks with a separated shoulder. And
wow.
He found a way to win 11 games. And then his junior year, he started off a little shaky with just some picks, but he found a way to win every game other than the last one against Georgia. And then his senior year, he found a way to win 13 games when people said he wasn't as accurate at throwing the football. So he's a winner. He's a guy that can self-evaluate, and he continues to grow.
What's it like, all these seniors that we're talking about, they come in as, kids basically, and they leave you as men. And in that time frame, you're very responsible for molding them, not only as football players, but as men, as human beings. I mean, Desmond Ritter's a dad, great dad. Desmond Ritter is a great citizen. I mean, Desmond Ritter's everything. What's it like? What's the feeling like when you see a kid come in and then 4 or 5 years later see him leave, and he's a totally different guy? He's transformed into this amazing human being.
Well, to me, that's what college football is all about. That's what I've always loved. And I've been very fortunate to be in not a whole lot of different places. And I'm not saying by choice, been very fortunate not having to go, but in college, when you can stick things out and watch these guys grow, to me, that's the most gratifying thing, and you make it important, but if you're not there for more than 2 or 3 or 4 years, you don't get the luxury, if that's what's important to you, to see those guys grow. So for me, this week coming up with the draft is, obviously an awesome moment, like a parent, to watch a lot of these kids, see some of their dreams and passions come true.
Yeah.
But to see how much they've grown, and it's not always just the Desmond Ritters that everybody sees. We'll talk a little bit about a Curtis Brooks, and to see some of the things that I've just seen him change, not as a football player, but in a lot of other ways, over a 5-year period. It's something that doesn't get talked about a lot, but I know for me, that's what continues to drive me, and in a lot of ways keeps me in one place.
In your conversations, you think Desmond Ritter's going to be drafted in the first round, or is it impossible to say, I guess?
Oh, you know better than I do. I don't know what all the smoke screen is and all the different, what everybody really believes and things like that.
Sure.
I've never tried to predict. I would honestly, I'd be shocked if somebody that doesn't fall in love with him and recognize what he has been and what he can be and takes him in the first round. Now, if he's not, he's not. But I personally would be a little bit shocked, just based on if you really sit down with them and what you're looking for, as an NFL quarterback. I think it's going to happen.
So the last first round pick out of University of Cincinnati is 1971. You could have 2, Desmond Ritter, and then let's talk about the surefire, maybe top 5, got to be top 5 pick, maybe top 3, Sauce Gardner, Ahmad Sauce Gardner. And I guess you're headed to, are you headed to the draft with him, Coach?
Yep, I'm gonna head out there and be there to say thank you more than anything to Ahmad. He had asked me a couple of weeks ago, Coach, you going to come? And I'm like, we're trying to do some events around you getting drafted, but there's nothing better than to be out there to, just to support him and to really, for me, to say thank you for all that he's done, and not just the way he's played, but the way he's represented our program too.
So 9 interceptions, 2 pick sixes. It's a pretty good ratio right there. And the thing is, I mean, they stayed away from him. It's like, I'm not going to challenge this guy anymore. No touchdown passes allowed. I mean, he's so long too. I mean, he's tall, he's long. What is it about his play, Coach, both physically and mentally, that has impressed you over the years?
I think it's first and foremost his mental. I mean, the kid has a unique confidence. And you've seen those guys that walk in, whether it's an NFL locker room or college locker room, and people would say, oh, they're a really confident kid. And then you're like, he's a really good player, but I don't know that that's true confidence deep down inside. He walked in and he had a very unique confidence about him, but a humbleness too, which I don't know that I've seen a whole lot in those high-end guys. And so that true deep-rooted confidence in who he is and what he does and how he does it was, to me, the thing that made us put him in the football game, because I didn't think he was going to be good enough to play to start with. Oh. And by just his confidence, all of a sudden we needed to put him in the UCF game his true freshman year. And he made a play in the first series. In the second series, he picked sixed it. And I went, okay, so I was wrong. Let's just go ahead and leave him in the game. And so along with all the abilities, there's a mental side of things and a heart that I think gives him the next level opportunities.
6'2 plus, 190 plus. Didn't give up a reception of over 20 yards for the season. What? I mean, and when you have a kid like you're talking about, the confidence, but yet is still coachable. It's not like I know the answer to everything. It's like, Coach, give me some. I'm going to sponge. I'm going to soak up all the knowledge here. When you have that combination, you get a guy like this, right?
That's the thing that I've told people that's so unique about him. I've been fortunate to be around some first-round draft pick corners in particular, and who's the best one? I'll be honest with you. I don't know that I've seen anyone better. Yep. And over a period of time. Now I've gotten to see him obviously over a 3-year period, but I've never seen one or been around one that's got the uniqueness of. I call them sometimes those really, really high-end athletes are like, my pregnant wife. I'm not everybody's pregnant wife, but my pregnant wife sometimes. Well, there were some emotional roller coasters, and sometimes when the weather's different, they're a little different. But he is just joy to be around every single day with a smile on his face, competes, works. He never changed from the time he walked in the door as a freshman to when he walked out of the door here with, obviously going to where he's going to be selected.
That's phenomenal. All right, here, next guy I want to talk about is a guy that, in my mind, could be one of the stories of the draft. Louis Riddick recently talked about him. We had Chris Sims on our podcast, and he'll be talking about him next week in our draft coverage. Pierce is, everybody's like, whoa, watch out for this guy. I mean, a guy his size that can run and jump like this guy can. I mean, a big deal in the NFL is, contested catches. What? This guy's a contested catch machine, right?
Yes. Yeah. And that's where I think he has grown immensely. Not that he didn't have that ability before. I mean, the guy, obviously you don't need to talk about it. He's got, 40-inch vertical jump. But he's got he really developed that uniqueness to be able to go up and get the ball and judge the ball. And I think he's just great. We're so smart as coaches. We moved him to linebacker at the end of his freshman year.
Yeah, right.
And thank goodness that he came to us and said, I really feel like I would be a better wide receiver. I'm like, okay, we'll see how you do. We'll move you back over to wide receiver and see if you can continue to develop. And we just loved his athleticism. Here was a guy that, coming out of high school, we weren't sure, was he going to be a DB? Was he going to be a linebacker? Could he play wide receiver? A raw athlete. And I tell you, he has developed and really kind of taken the mindset more than anything. And I give Mike Brown, our receivers coach, a lot of credit, just continuing to pound him about little things and working to be a great wide receiver. And he's one of those guys. He's graduated in 3.5 years in engineering. You talk about academic All-American, maybe that's not listed, but he was an academic. But he is the one that, like, when you give him something and you challenge him something, that intelligence just gives him the opportunity to continue to grow.
Coach, I always, my final evaluation, my tiebreaker on receivers is, will they block? This dude puts his nose in there now. Like you said, he had the linebacker. They have a certain mentality to even be considered to play that position. So transfer that over there where he's blocking on the edge. Whew, that's big time.
That, and he was our best special teams. He was our gunner for us, and he was by far the best guy we had. And he had got hurt at the end of his junior year, and we obviously didn't use him more. In our senior year, we didn't use him as much as a gunner, but he is phenomenal. That's what he's got that mentality. He's fearless. He understands, in order to be great, you got to be well-rounded in all that you do, and he takes pride in doing those things too. So. I'm with you. The sky's the limit, and I think he's one that is really just scratching the surface to what he can be over the next 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, it seems like two things that stand out to me too is how he tracks the football, and then in the contested catch, not only high point it, but he's got strong hands. His hands, when he gets his hands on the ball, man, they're not taking that football away from him.
No, and that's where I thought that he did a phenomenal job. And I don't know if in the 2 years prior we did as good a job at recognizing that and giving him those opportunities. Being a dumb defensive guy, sometimes I would be like, hey, can we just throw the ball up to Pierce? And they'd be like, well, yeah, we had that called, but it was a different coverage, so he went the other side of the field. I'm like, okay, let's just go ahead and throw it up anyway. Those 50-50 balls have become 70-30 balls. So let's take the chance at it. And I think that's where Des and him got an unbelievable rapport and confidence in each other to just say, hey, I'm going to take this shot at him, and I know he's got a great chance of making it.
Let's talk about another cornerback, Kobe Bryant. This guy, 6'1" plus, 193 pounds plus, 10 interceptions, 5 forced fumbles, responsible for 15 takeaways. He had 45 pass breakups in the 50-game career. He gets his hands on the football, doesn't he, Coach?
And he was challenged a lot more just because of Ahmad on the other side, So
Right.
there was nothing better for Kobe than to have that, because when challenged, that's when he's the best. I don't know that there's a couple people that have really created the culture and environment atmosphere at our place. And he is as big a part of that as anybody. I would say Derek Forrest, the year before they got drafted and plays for the Washington football team or whatever. Not sure what I can't keep up with it, whatever. But he plays Command. There you go. He plays for the Commanders.
Yeah.
And he was a guy that I always said, hey, he was the heart. He was kind of what our culture has developed. Kobe's the same way. And if I don't like to pinpoint like who's your favorite players you ever coached, but in the back of my mind, there's three guys that I always say are my favorite players I ever coached. I used to say it was two, and I throw Kobe into being the third one. And it's just because of his attitude. It's just, in my mind, where his ability is and what he has done with his ability every single day. He's that guy that, as much as anybody that I will miss having out there every day.
It seems like both of these guys do a good job of getting their hands on receivers and rerouting them, And so to me, it looks like they can. Do you feel that they're equally adept at press or off coverage?
Yeah, actually, Kobe is the one that we would know as a little bit more adept at doing both. Ahmad, we didn't do that much with. We let him stay pressed all the time. I think his transition at the next level will be playing some more off-man coverage stuff. Mm-hmm. Just because we cheated so much. Don't go off. It's where Kobe, we did. He played the field more. He had to be more adept and playing with some better visions of things. Yeah. So he's the one that, to me, I keep saying, guys, like, he could be a nickel. I know he doesn't see him in press as much, but he would be a great nickel press guy, blitz guy. He's got the ability to play both, off coverage as well as press coverage.
So let's go to a running back who comes to you from Alabama, Jerome Ford, 5'10 plus, 210 pounds, 4.4s in the 40, and functional football speed. He had 3 plays for 75 yards or more. Nobody caught him. That's just put the pads on. Functional football speed. That's this guy. He's got some explosion to him, doesn't he? He rushed. He's the 5th guy in school history to rush for over 1,300 yards. His feet are quick. This guy, to me, in terms of his lateral movement, that quick lateral movement, and then change the hole a little bit, is unbelievable to watch.
Yeah. Whatever they say is 40 yards. He's faster than that on the football field. I haven't seen one as fast as him, and I know he broke away 70 against Georgia, and nobody caught him, and a couple more this past year. And he is. The crazy thing is we knew he had a lot of ability, but in today's day and age, you don't tackle and practice a whole lot. And so I think it was in camp. Finally, he was going to be the guy, and we're like, okay, we're gonna go live. We've got to see what some of these guys can do before we get to a game. And all of a sudden, that's when it was like an aha moment for all of us. We knew he had talent. We knew he had some of those lateral movements. And then we recognized how much strength he had and how much balance he had when it was actual live situations. That's when we were like, okay, I've seen 1 day of tackling. That's all we need. Let's wait till the game time. But no, he's done a phenomenal job. I think that, he had 1,300 yards rushing and never carried the ball more than 18 times in one game.
Wow.
So there's not a lot of tread taken off those tires. I know in the Houston game, he had like 227 yards or something. And I'm like, well, why did we only give him the ball 18 times? We should have given him the ball 25 times, but it's a good thing.
Well, I think a team that takes him, whatever round they take him, is getting huge value because of what you said. That was his only real year of action. He hasn't been beaten up. This kid his body's fresh now, and he's proven that he can get it done. How is he, coach, in terms of catch out of the backfield, blitz pickup, things of that nature?
He's a great pass protector. Now, obviously, learning protections is a bigger deal, but he will stick his nose in there. He will stone guys coming up the middle. And then uniquely, he was more of a slot receiver in high school a little bit because in his high school they had 2 tailbacks. He actually went to Alabama out of high school, and the other one went to Ohio State.
Wow.
and they were the same class.
Man.
So the other guy maybe was a little bit of a bigger back. So he played a lot of slot receiver. So he's got a lot of natural ability of catching the football and doing some things out of the backfield or even flexed out because he played a lot of that out of high school. So I think the same thing. He has played one real solid long year in college where he's got a lot of tread. I mean, his body is not beat up. He never carried the ball more than 18 times. I think that his ability to have a long career is really good.
You mentioned this name earlier, Coach, Brian Cook at the safety position. Now, he played some corner, so, I mean, that tells you something. He's a guy that got some versatility. He could be one of those safeties that can play slot maybe. Lou Anarumo loves those kind of guys that can give you that type of position versatility. He's one of 4 defensive backs that had 95 or more total tackles and 10 or more pass breakups. That's pretty strong. That's getting it done for sure. What about Brian Cook? What do you like about him?
I think he's the most underrated guy on our team, and from the coaches as well, from us. He's a kid. Yeah, he did. He played corner in college his first 2 years at Howard, and one of those guys I think graduated high school with maybe like 160 pounds at maybe like 5'9", 5'10". I think maybe his junior year was like 150 pounds and 5'8".
Wow.
And I guess he grew. And and then even for us, the first year he had to sit out because he transferred from Howard before you could be immediately eligible. And then the next year he got hurt a little bit in camp and he had 2 NFL draft picks in front of him. So we knew he was a really good football player. We knew he was a special kid. And he was a second-team academic All-American. But he didn't play a ton for us. And when Wiggins got hurt and he played the whole championship game and then he played against Georgia, that's when we first really recognized what we had. And he played his butt off against you. I mean, like he blitzed and made plays. He made plays down the field. And then in the summer in the winter we had our little combine testing. And when he ran 4.45, I kind of looked around. I'm like, I'm not sure we're really good coaches, guys. Tell me why we didn't have this guy on the field more. I mean, he's dynamic and he is as good a well-rounded kid as we've got in the whole program.
Is he one of the guys that sets the tone from a work ethic standpoint? Is he one of those guys that's a tireless worker type?
He is a worker. He is a no-nonsense guy. He really is one of those high-end intelligent guys that, does everything you want. He is a leader in that room more than anything. Those other 2 guys, obviously, have made it last year in the NFL and played. And I would tell you that he's, a more vocal guy on the field, controls the whole back end, and only 1 year of starting really for us. So another one of those guys, I'm like, wow, man, I'd love to have had him for another year. But I'm not sure that's fair to him.
Right.
But yeah, I think his best ball is to be played at the next level.
A couple more defensive players. How about Sanders on the edge? I mean, this guy, he's unique. 6'5", between 245, 250. Now, when I watch him, he's got quick hands and quick feet, and he's got a good low pad level, for his height. And he's a guy that converts speed to power. Those guys I always respect that can make that conversion. Very explosive, very flexible kid. I mean, what is it about him, Coach, that makes him unique and special?
He's sometimes your offensive lineman's nightmare, and I mean that in a sense that like there's not a play that he's not going 100 miles an hour. I mean, like, there's nobody that our offensive line guys dislike more when we're in a helmets practice or we're in a Thursday's practice because he doesn't know. Like, we do 2 minute at the end of a Thursday practice, and it's we call it an offensive drill, and what's an offensive? I don't want to say non-competitive drill because that doesn't fly on our program. So I just say an offensive drill, meaning don't go for the ball. It's kind of a mechanics of things, and I mean, like. He go and everything he does, he's going 100 miles a minute. For us, he actually played a little bit out of position for what I think he is at the next level. We play him as a heavy 5 technique, a 4 technique, a 4-eye technique at 250 pounds. But He'll put his face on everything. And he's not like, well, he's only 250 pounds. How's he going to play a 4 or a 4-eye and 2-gap the offensive attack? Well, he will. He can because he doesn't bother him, you know. Don't tell him he can't do it because he's only 250 pounds, because that's going to make a long day for everybody. So that's what he is. He is a guy that's going to be a relentless go every single day in every practice.
Well, when you started talking about, in practice, the different tempo, Tim Crumry, rookie year, I'm going against Crumry every day. And it was, okay, guys, this is a half speed drill. Crumry leans into me. He goes, hey, man, I don't go for that half speed stuff or that 3/4 speed stuff. He goes, when we're out here, we're going, okay? We're going. I mean, every single snap of the entire practice was full go with Tim Crumry. I'm like, all right, Tim, just hey, thanks for letting me know. It's like, here we go.
Darn wrestlers. I'm
telling you, man, that dude, he was something else, man. He brought it. And guys like that are incredible. They really are. I mean, they make a big, big impact on a football team. That stuff gets contagious. There's no doubt. No doubt.
It does.
All right. So let's talk about another linebacker, Darian Beavers. This guy, watching him. I mean, at one point, he was a safety. I know at one point, maybe dabbled at edge rush a little bit. Linebacker. Yep. He's got some position versatility to him. He's put on, like, since his junior or senior year in high school, I thought I read where he put on almost 100 pounds. I mean, he kid grew into this man. Pretty special athlete out of Coleraine, huh?
He is. And he was coming out when we first came to UC and didn't know about him. You're right. He was like a 180-pound safety at Coleraine High School, and knew nothing about him. Then all of a sudden we play UConn the first year, and he's starting for him at will linebacker. And then the next year he's starting for him at defensive end. And then he transferred back home to us. And really, I think that the unique thing about him was he was always been a really good athlete. And I think this last year and a half is when he kind of recognized and dedicated himself to the weight room. And not mean he didn't lift, but just like recognizing from our program and what we've kind of tell him, like, in order to do this, I mean, if you want to play the next level, I mean, you're talking about grown men, and you've got to get your body in a position. Doesn't mean you're tougher, right? But if your body can't take it in the grown man world that you want to go to, there's no chance for you to sustain things. And he really took a different mentality even into this last year and a half. And I saw it in his play. I mean, he was 260 pounds for us. Wow. I think his uniqueness is he has versatility to play as an outside linebacker or an inside linebacker. He has pass rush ability, but I think his best asset is going to be in the passing game in general because of his length, athleticism, and intelligence. At the next level, I think he will be has a chance to be a really good player in different ways, meaning, like, I think it's different sometimes coming from college to the NFL. They're just maybe not used to the passing game as much. And a lot of college linebackers probably don't see it. And I think that's where he's going to be able to excel with his athleticism and length and speed.
Watching him a little bit, he would be a nightmare as a lineman working against him, because this kid's got to have a hell of a football IQ, and he probably studies his butt off because he'll shoot a gap at the exact right time. He'll backdoor. It's like, and you have to have, okay, I'm rolling the dice, but he's right a high percentage of the time, so it's like this dude. I used to hate linebackers when we come to line of scrimmage, and he'd be like, he'd start yelling, all right, this formation, and they're running it right here, and he'd be right. He'd be like, damn, come on, man, it's like,
come on, guys, don't give it away.
Yeah, it seems like Beavers has that type of football IQ, does he?
He does, and I think that's that big mentality, and the way we're built, we try to tell those guys in particular, you can be aggressive. I mean, if you come backdoor, we have some layers to what we do, but you just got to do it and be aggressive.
Right.
And so we try to say, okay, now when you have a general idea and you can anticipate, you can take those chances and shots. But, I've coached a lot of guys that won't take those shots because they're programmed like, well, I don't want to make a mistake. And I think that's where he really grew, is he has that ability to anticipate and not let his conscience hold him back from taking some of those aggressive opportunities.
So let's hit on a few other guys, because the Bengals had their, the local 28 players, the workout at Paul Brown Stadium, and 7 of those players were from UC. Maybe 8, 2, 5, 7. 7 of the players. Michael Young, Dublanco, Vincent McConnell at center, Curtis Brooks you've made mention of. Let's talk a little bit about Curtis Brooks. People are saying he might be a preferred free agent. I'm thinking this guy could be a late round draft pick. Am I off base there, Coach?
No, I think what he did when they had our pro day, he was the one guy that I didn't want to complain. We had 8 guys invited to the combine, but he was the one guy that I was disappointed didn't get invited, because I knew how explosive he was. I knew, what he had done even from the year before to that year. And I don't mean just on the field. I mean just in dedication of changing his body a little bit. I just thought he was going to be really one of those guys that impressed people, and they would go back and watch after they saw how explosive he was. And that's kind of what's happened ever since pro day. Had a lot of guys start to call. A lot of guys say, well, I better go back and rewatch this guy. And I tell them, I said, we were very fortunate to have Ahmad and Kobe and some great players and Masha, but I would say he was our defensive MVP.
Huh.
And that's just because we asked him to play nose guard. We asked him to do certain things. We asked him, hey, we need you to do this. If and he's really one of those smart ones. You know how that is. If you can find a smart D lineman, they can be a lot better. They're not like O-line guys, right? I mean, not that often you can find those really smart D linemen, right? So anyway, he's one of those. I can say that because I was an old D lineman.
Got you, Coach.
He's one of those guys that when we started to kind of change up the way, like, hey, when you get an offset back and you get a tight end away from him as a nose guard, I want you to play lateral. I want you, when you get him on the same side, I want you to play downhill. All those things, when you really start to study the film, he would do. He could take the game plan and then go out there. And he might not be making the plays. Like I would tell him, I'll buy Chipotle for you every time they run a stretch play. You're the one that makes the play. Now, you're not going to get credit for the tackle because you're not going to make the tackle, but you're going to run the stretch play. You're going to take the center and you're going to keep riding him lateral, and you're going to stay on the back hip, and the guard's going to have to stay on you. And that means the backers are going to get the run for you. But if you think you can make the play and you come off and let the center climb and hassle with the guard, the center's up, and he'd be like, okay. So every stretch play, he would do exactly. I mean, he's one of those guys that might not got a lot of the credit, but he really, really did a phenomenal job. And I think as a 3 technique or even a 5 technique, he's got a chance because he's really powerful.
So you bought him a lot of Chipotle, huh, Coach?
I owe him a lot of Chipotle.
Right. You owe him a lot of Chipotle.
I make the linebackers go into that other room and when they see it on film on Sundays and say, hey, thank you, I owe you Chipotle. So, us D-line guys, all we want is a little pat on the back. Or I should say us nose guards. All we want is every now and then is the little pat on the rear. Like, hey, thank you, man. That's all we need. We're not O-linemen, but we're very similar.
Very similar. Throw him a bone, man. Throw him a bone. What the heck? Another guy I left out that was at the Bengals workout, Marcus Brown, another defensive tackle for you. How many of these guys that were at the, Pierce was there as well with Michael Young. Michael Young didn't work, though, at the Bengals work day. But any of these guys, can you see quite a few of these guys going to an NFL camp? So you may have 8, 10 guys drafted, and another 5 or 6 guys go to a camp. That would be unbelievable.
Yes, I think there's no doubt to me. Joel DeBlanco will be in a camp. Vinny McConnell, who we lost for 3/4 of the second 3/4 of the year because he got mono. So he's a guy that not as many people know, and then all of a sudden they work him out. He's 300 pounds. They're like, wow. I think he'll do a great job. Marcus Brown's another one of those guys. Actually, Michael Young did not work out there the other day, and I talked to Coach Taylor just the other day, and I say, I heard he didn't work out, but I would take a peek at him because he did a phenomenal job for us. He transferred from Notre Dame, came into a room, added some incredible maturity and intelligence throughout that entire room, and really was a good football player. Now, we got this past year where Desmond Ritter was really, really good, almost too good sometimes, because I'd be like, would you just throw the ball up to Pierce? Well, my read tells me, when they go one high, I'm not going. I'm like, just throw it up to them. Those dumb D-line guys, just all we know is just, hey, throw the ball there. But Mike's one of those guys too that we really started to develop with the Pierces and the Trey Tuckers and the Tyler Scotts. We had a lot of guys, and Dez did a phenomenal job at moving the ball around. That he might not got as much credit this past year, but he's a guy that I think that has special teams value and will have a chance when he gets into camp.
So, Coach, this group of guys is a very special group, obviously. I mean, they believed in Coach Luke Fickell. They believed in the vision that you had. And you guys, I mean, it's iconic. It's legendary what you've done at University of Cincinnati. And you guys will be close. You'll be a football family the rest of your lives. I mean, I still have great relationships with guys that I went and played in the Super Bowl with. Those bonds don't go away, And so these guys are moving on to their professional careers, whether it be football or business, whatever, and they're well stocked and armed to be a success in whatever they decide to do. So, how do you replace them? How did spring practice go? And and what are you thinking?
Well, we didn't have to replace them just yet. If you didn't make it out to spring, but like every day at spring practice, Ahmad Gardner was at every practice. I think Desmond Ritter was at every practice. Curtis Brooks was about at every one of those guys that we just talked about. If they weren't on a visit, that's what I was like. That's when I start to recognize, like, okay, I believe we've created that family where they didn't come here and rent it. They came here, they recognized, they realized they now will own this and represent this for the rest of their lives. So we didn't have to replace them because they were all out there, which was great. But when the ball went down, we noticed that they weren't out there anymore.
Right.
Which, in a lot of ways, as a coach, it's almost like this is one of those. Hey, it's exciting. Not that it wasn't exciting before, but even the spring the year before and the fall camp the year before, you were, okay, let's be smart now. We just don't get anybody hurt. Not that we want to get anybody hurt anytime, but like you just had a different mentality based on the season you were going into and what you had. And this is one of those ones now where, just like spring ball, was like it was so competitive and so energetic because there's been a lot of guys that maybe have had little roles that are now going into greater roles and are really hungry for this opportunity. So even as a coach, it's like spring was so much fun because, you had these guys that were just, hungry. They'd been behind maybe some of these really star players. But understand and recognize it's not going to be handed to them, but there's an opportunity there that's been a little bit different for them.
Man, I'll tell you, Coach, I respect everything you have to deal with: transfer portals, NIL. Now there's that to worry about. How do you keep control of who gets what and how they get it and everything? And talking about high school kids getting paid now too. Oh my gosh, it's a crazy world. But you've done a remarkable job recruiting and building your program. Have you found that you're getting in doors that you necessarily didn't get in a few years back, and now with your successes, boy, you pretty much have the pick of the litter. You can go in and compete to get almost any kid in the country that you want?
Well, it may be a little bit different. I think 3-4 years ago, we had to kick some doors in, nah, we're not really interested today. Tommy Boy, no, thank you. All right. We wouldn't say all right. We'd have to keep kicking at the door. And, a lot of times the door never did open, but we kicked at it.
Yep.
Now we're not maybe having to kick at the door as much. They actually open it for you. That doesn't guarantee anything. You still got to seal the deal, and you still got to, have an opportunity to make sure it's the right thing for them. But there's no doubt some interest and some doors have been opened, and we want to continue the philosophy of, hey, we're not changing how we've recruited. We're not changing the type of kids we recruit. We want the same kid. We've been recruiting these kids, and a lot of them you don't land.
Yeah.
I think the difference now is we may have a greater opportunity to land some of these kids based on what we've done. Even the league and all that's going on with us in college football, it's going to give us an opportunity to maybe land some of those ones that we had to kick the door in just so they would listen to us. But in our minds, we're not changing. These kids, the Ahmad Gardners and the Desmond Ritters that maybe were underrated are still the ones that I think give us the greatest opportunity to have success as we continue to move forward. So there's a good balance there that don't lose sight on the things that have made those guys and made our program so special, but to keep making sure that we can find ways to grow.
And really the magic word, and people are like, culture, everybody talks about culture. It's a fact. I mean, culture is the key, and you're responsible. I mean, you set the tone. You're the guy, you're the CEO, you're the point man. But now you've got, coaches, and you've got players that have been around for a while. You have the success you had last year, and there's a bunch of guys coming back that had a taste of that, and it just grows and blossoms, doesn't it? I mean, you feel the momentum of your culture at this point, Coach?
Winning is a habit, and it's not like everybody I always use the phrase, I don't lose. What do you mean? I never lose. So I tell my kids to say, I never lose. And they're like, well, Dad, hey, you guys got beat by Alabama. You lost. I said, I didn't lose. The time ran out, and I don't make any excuses. And that's kind of the mentality I'm talking about. Like, guys, we don't lose. I mean, and that's, what winning continues to breed winning. And it's more of a mindset and a mentality that, you just got to keep going and keep growing. And if you're not growing, then you got to worry. And, the great thing is we got to worry about some different things now. Before it was, you had to worry because, you didn't want guys to get discouraged because people said you can't do this and you're not very good. And now we've flipped the script a little bit. Now you got to be able to handle some of these praises and things like that. But either way, you got to continue to grow. We know what it's all about. Culture is what I'd say is the greatest competitive advantage that you can create within your program. It's not the height, weight, and speed that give you the best chance to be successful. I know the culture is the buzzword. That's why you'll hear me say a lot of times our environment, which is another way of saying it, but not just using the word that everybody uses. But it's our environment. It's our culture. I like to say it's our way of life. And, we don't want to change no matter what it is that we've done. We just want to continue to grow.
Well, Coach, can't thank you enough for your time. You've done a remarkable job. You've built something at the University of Cincinnati that, in my opinion, there's not another coach in the country that has had as much success in a shorter period of time as you. I mean, you set a very high bar, a very high standard, and UC is very, very fortunate that you're a Bearcat head football coach. I would think that every job opening in the country last year, you were probably the number one candidate that they wanted to talk to, and here you are, the University of Cincinnati, doing your thing for our area, our community, and it's appreciated, Coach. I know I do. I know a ton of people do. Appreciate everything you do and what you're all about.
Well, I appreciate it, man. It is a great place, and like we said, it depends on what's important to you, right? Seeing a lot of these guys grow up and winning, obviously, is a byproduct of it, but there's a lot of other things that come into what it is that we do. And when you're in a great place with a great community, a great city, it makes it that much easier to make sure it's awesome for your family as well. So all those things being said, it's what, to me, what motivates and what keeps me where I am.
Anybody watching and listening out there that has a high school football player that you think can play Division I football, if UC hasn't reached out yet, why don't you reach out to Coach Fickell, because he will make your boy a man. There's no question about it. Appreciate you, Coach.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it, Dave.
You're the best. Have a great one.
Thank you.
Dave Lapham here, and every day I am grateful for my experience to have played professional football. As a player, I realized self-motivation, leadership, and appreciating your teammates are key. At First Star Logistics, you can use those same attributes to create the life you want for you and your family. Build your future by working hard like I did. You'll see results both on and off the field. Call First Star Logistics today and be part of our winning team.
Opportunity knocking.